morning. On behalf of the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce and the Wilmington Chamber Foundation, thank you for attending and joining us this morning for the meeting. For those of you that I have not met, my name is Rickey Godwin. I am a partner with the McGladrey CPA firm, and I'm the 2014 chairman of the Chamber Board of Directors. When you heard about this event, I'm sure some of you wondered, why is the Chamber involved in a crime meeting? Crime is a challenge for every community. Those communities that are most effective at fighting it, or perhaps I should say preventing the conditions that support it, are the communities where law enforcement doesn't tackle the issue by themselves. Successful communities have multiple organizations, businesses, and individuals working together to seek collaborative solutions and offer their help. That's why we're here today and why the Chamber is hosting this meeting this morning. We all know that crime is a business issue from the perspective of keeping your company and property safe and employees safe. We also know that crime is a quality of life issue. We all want to keep our families safe. But as we learned at the Chamber's 2013 annual meeting from nationally recognized business site selector Jay Garner, crime affects economic development. An area's crime rate is a prime consideration for relocating businesses to our area. It could be the reason that the next GE or PPD relocates or decides not to relocate to our area. Or it may even be the reason why an existing business leaves the area. The issue is exacerbated when high-profile crimes occur. The media, understandably, does stories about shootings and murders and other crimes in the area. We've seen it occur recently in Wilmington with reports of gang activity and other crimes. And those high-profile crimes paint an unflattering and often misleading picture of crime in our community. As a part of the Chamber's quality of life initiatives, mainly through the Chamber's flagship program, Cape Fear Future, we have focused on crime. Chamber President Connie Majorette serves on the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Commission for the Prevention of Youth Violence. The Chamber's Executive Committee has held meetings with Police Chief Ralph Evangelos, Sheriff Ed McMahon, District Attorney Ben David, and others. The Chamber Foundation has been involved in the issue by exploring education alternatives. Through these initial efforts, we have learned a great deal about crime, especially how and why much of it begins. The recipe for crime, if you will. We have learned that the best way to combat crime is not to provide the ingredients for the recipe until it boils over, as violence, burglaries, and other crimes. We are here today to take the next step. Our guest speakers are going to provide an inside look at the realities of crime and what we can do as a business community to take a more active role in reducing the chances that our young people will become involved in gangs and other illegal activities. We have with us today DC Virgo Principal Eric Irizarry, District Attorney Ben David, Wilmington Mayor Bill Saffo, and Jana Jones-Halls, the Executive Director of the Blue Ribbon Commission on the Prevention of Youth Violence. And now I turn it over to Ben David.
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here today and look out and see so many leaders. I know how hard you've worked on this issue and how closely you keep this to your heart. When I spoke at the Downtown Power Breakfast last month, I challenged the business community to do three things. To raise money, and that's what we're here to do this morning. To think about jobs, and we're really focusing on fighting poverty through not just government intervention, but the private sector stepping up. And then really looking at the long-term prevention efforts that comes with working with our young people through giving your time. One of the ways you do that, of course, is to encourage your employees and lead by example by going in to our youth enrichment zone and working day in and day out with these young people. And you're going to meet some this morning. But I also want to encourage you to support the schools in our youth enrichment zone. And that's a big part of what today is, because ultimately what we are fighting when we talk about violent crime, we are fighting poverty. Because lots of the things that we see in our youth enrichment zone, and I'm going to talk about it in more detail in just a minute, really are all about the breakdown of having structure at home that supports children. There's food insecurity. There are challenges of every dimension for these young people. And what we need to do is to focus on quality education for them, not just, by the way, at middle school, although that's certainly important. You know, when I was here this weekend in this very room, meeting with almost 200 child educators that were between 0 and 5 in terms of their student populations, we were focusing on the critical first 2,000 days of life and how we really need to focus on making sure these kids walk into our public schools in kindergarten ready to go. So what I'd like to do now is talk about the strategic plan, because every business needs one, and to be clear, we run a business. In fact, I run the largest law firm in Wilmington. It's the district attorney's office. The 40 men and women of them, about 8 of them are here this morning. Could you guys just raise your hand? Can we give them a hand real quick for what they do every day? I'm going to get out of the way so you can see some slides, okay? First of all, and I apologize if this sounds familiar to any of you, because I think it is worth repeating some of the things we covered last month, but I became a prosecutor in this town the day after the Columbine tragedy, which was April of 1999. And so we were fighting crime that really had occurred the year before, 2 years before. Look at what the crime rate has been doing over that time. You know, I woke up this morning, and I'm not going to say which of the news stations I was watching, but they were reporting accurately that the crime rate is down again. We are down overall. What's been going up is the violent crime and the brazenness and where it's occurring. And so what we have to look at then is, what do you do about it? Well, here's the first thing. To be very clear, violent crime will always be the first priority of my office and that of law enforcement. I see our Chief Ralph Evangelist, I know it's his. Whenever something serious happens, like the murder that happened this weekend, we work hand in glove to see what can be done to bring justice to that situation. I'm very proud to tell you that the team you just saw in that picture hasn't heard the words "not guilty" after a murder trial in over 15 years in this community. That hasn't happened because they set the tone on the worst of the worst cases. But to be very clear, this is only made for the worst cases. Jails and prisons were built for sex offenders, for drug dealers, career criminals, violent criminals. What about everybody else? For everybody else, it sort of feels like this, doesn't it? 98% of the people we put in jail and prison are coming out. 98%. And 66% of them will be back in 2 years, if the past is any guide. That's called recidivism, repeat offending. And the reason for that is no one's hiring a felon in this day and age. There's drug issues that go largely untreated in the Department of Corrections. And there needs to be a support network. So when I'm meeting with some of the business community next week to talk about what we can do to break the back of long-term poverty and chronic underemployment and unemployment, it really starts not with government intervention, but the private sector stepping up. And then, of course, the lead story last year, and again, it's already started again to be on everyone's mind, is gangs. And what are we really doing about it? To be clear, children look to adults for guidance. They model our behavior. And you know what? When they don't have adults to do that with, they look to each other. It's really that simple. When you lack structure at home, you find it on the street. And that's exactly what we have here in the Youth Enrichment Zone. Because what a gang provides is the very same thing that a family does in many respects, a sense of belonging, meaning and purpose. And so if you're going to have loyalty and support from people like that, of course kids are going to gravitate towards a situation like that. Here's the problem. Families are built around love and support. Gangs are built around violence and criminal conduct. And so ultimately, that relationship is doomed to fail. But that's the incubator right there. It's poverty and the lack of structure. You know, 5 years ago, we decided to put forth a 20-year strategic plan by coming together. We knew that we had to do something to look at this issue holistically. In the schools, there was an issue. In the courts, there was an issue. There was an issue out in our community. And we knew we couldn't just solve it at the courthouse or at the schoolhouse. We had to go to the child's house. And so what we did is we formed this Blue Ribbon Commission on the Prevention of Youth Violence, bringing together not just all these elected leaders, and many are here today, but to the pastors, and I see a number of you, because this is ultimately a moral issue. We brought together the business community, because not only is crime not good for business, but many of the resources that you have and that you're bringing to the table today can really help us fight this issue, because ultimately, again, we're talking about poverty. Here's something that we set up to be strategic about it. We brought in our 45 partners that were working directly with the young people in the youth enrichment zone. That is the nonprofits, and many of you are here today. And we said, we want to support you. If there's redundancies, we don't need them. We're going to try and merge those. Where there's gaps, we're going to fill them. We're going to look at national best practices. We're going to have someone like Al Lurch, and then he became Tim Markley, the school superintendent, taking on education. I, along with Frankie Roberts, was going to take on the crime, and our mayor was going to look at community engagement. And we were going to have all of these teams working together in team-like fashion to see what we could do about ending long-term gang issues. And we adopted some national best practices. And to be clear, you're going to have some steps back when you're walking forward, and we have seen some of those things. But you know what? This is working. If you look at the book off to your right, every employee in my office, that was required reading last year, and I highly recommend you read it. The places that adopt this intervention-based strategy called the High Point Model from David Kennedy's Don't Shoot book, on average, crime goes down by 30%, whether you're talking about a big market like Boston, and they called it the Boston Miracle, or you're talking about a little rural community. The 80 different communities around the country have done it, it works. And so when Ralph Evangelist and Ed McMahon and the heads of probation and parole at the federal level are all in a room talking to these young men and women who are already in gangs about what we can do to really intervene in their lives, that works. But there's also a prevention-based strategy that we employed. 5 years ago, we went into Harlem, where they have a Harlem Children's Zone, where you start literally when a baby has been conceived and worry about prenatal nutrition, and say, what are we going to do to make sure that that child who's born has a shot? It is unacceptable that their arc involves either prison or a funeral. It's unacceptable. And so what we did 5 years ago is we had put a youth enrichment zone here in this community, and that's where it was. And here's where it is in Wilmington. It's the north side. It's the north side. And in the very center of it was a school that for 10 straight years had the worst test scores in this community. It was DC Virgo. And it was closing down because parents had voted with their feet. There were only 253 children in that school at its closure. There should have been over 500. And when we did an assessment, when we went door to door to look at the incredible poverty and the challenges these kids were up against, here's what we found. We found that of the 87 homes with 253 children, there are a total of just 4 fathers there. So that poster that hangs in my wall sort of has some meaning when we talk about this issue. That incidentally hung in my brother and I's room growing up. And so what we did is we said, we're going to retake the public square. We went to a park that was the site of many murder scenes. Said, this isn't acceptable. And so Corning, in just a few long weekends, renovated this park to what it is today, the Portia Hines Park. You know what? There was a murder there this weekend. It's not going to stop, but is it going to be a lot better to grow up in the park that's on your right or the one that's on your left? You know the answer to that. We need to retake our public squares. And then, of course, like I said, we reopened DC Virgo, and you're going to hear from our great principal in just a minute. This was only a year and a half ago, and we decided we were going to incrementally grow it. That is, we were going to start with the 6th grade, then the next year 7th, and then the following year 8th. So that one grade would push through, and a class would be added behind it each time. 125 children in the first class. And then we decided we were going to relocate our headquarters for the Blue Ribbon Commission right into that belly of the school. Thank you, PPD. You're the ones who did this. Can we give them a hand, by the way? It's an amazing accomplishment. There's a DC Virgo graduate, by the way, on your right. You know, there's been some challenges for a lot of young people in the zone for a while now. And certainly, sports has always been a way for some people to make it out. But, you know, if you add up the NBA, the major leagues, and the NFL put together, that's less than 3,000 jobs for the country. We've got to do something else to educate the youth in the youth enrichment zone to get jobs, and these kids need a shot right now. Like I said, it's all about the 0 to 5 population. In the Harlem Children's Zone model, they call it the baby college, where you're really looking at, are they getting molded right now with the tools that they need? Look at when the language acquisition happens. Look at when, and we know this just empirically, but if you're talking about return on investment, and isn't that what you do in business? You have to look at when you're really going to get the most return for what you're putting in. And education is where it's at, and the best crime prevention tool I've ever seen is quality education. And so we need to not just focus on the kids when they're coming into DC Virgo 3 grade levels behind. We need to focus on them when they're at Snipes with 18% proficiency. If we're not doing that, I can already tell you who we're going to be prosecuting. That's not acceptable. I can already tell you who's going to be in a gang, and that's not acceptable. So what we're asking you to do today is to reach deep and to support these kids through their entire school year, and specifically this summer, and we're going to be talking about that more later on. Last night I was with the Junior League. They had a check for $10,000 to this great organization called Nourish NC. I know that the Downtown Rotary gave a similar size check to Nourish NC. What is it? If you're reading about what they're doing across the bridge where every school child is getting free breakfast now, they understand that you can't learn when you're hungry. And the kids who are in our youth enrichment zone, many of them go to bed hungry. You know, just at my children's school, Forest Hills Elementary, when I walked them into that school for the first time, I had no idea that 72% of those children are on free and reduced lunch. 72% in one of the most beautiful places in our community. That, by the way, had a murder on the street right behind it, gang-related. And you know what? When you talk about the children that we're adopting now within that school, there are 37 kids who are no longer hungry. Their days are better starting on Monday because they're eating over the weekend, because their backpacks are now filled with food on Thursday because of people like the women in the Junior League and the men and women in Rotary and some of those of you in this room. We need to be doing that in our youth enrichment zone, and what the Junior League was doing last night was making sure that DC Virgo kids are going to have that same backpack program that we started at Forest Hills Elementary. And the kids are leading on this issue. To be clear, it's been a food drive effort called the Little Red Wagon. So if that's already taking place in your neighborhood, that's where it's going. We've been crime mapping for a while, and just to show you that this is not just a happy talk session, we've been looking for the last 3 years at the crime rate. We had 3 ambitious goals in our strategic plan 5 years ago. We were going to reduce crime by 25%, we were going to reduce the dropout and long-term suspension rate by 25%, and we were going to recruit a volunteer army of 3,000 people. Mission accomplished on every single one of those deliverables by the end of last year. Here's just the crime rate from 2009 to the end of last year. And again, we're talking about all crime, including violent crime. So where's it gone? It's getting displaced to other places. And as I shared with you at the Power Breakfast, a lot of it's now pouring over the bridge. As I've talked to with the DA over there, we have to take a regional approach to fighting crime. You know, the 3 young men that robbed the Pizza Hut, 2 killed and 1 in prison now, the one that shot the officer and then was killed himself in Creekwood, all 4 of them, Brunswick County. You know, we have to do more, and we can't think that this is just an inner city problem, because it's not. Ultimately, what this is making sure the kids have educational opportunities. I just want to quickly brag on Eric and his staff. You know, there are 42 schools in the New Hanover County public school system. All of them are ranked 1 to 42 on a lot of different deliverables. Very hard population with all the challenges you've heard of, waking up, many hungry, all of them coming from poverty, many 3 to 4 grade levels behind when they walk through those doors. Number 1 in the entire district for attendance rate last year. Number 1. And that's a day that starts at 8:30 and typically doesn't end till 5:30. And that's because the parents, grandparents who are raising these kids sign a contract that their kids are going to be there, not just for the school day, but for the after-school enrichment that hopefully we'll be talking about. But here's what I'm going to end with, and here's my challenge to all of you about why we're here today. You know, school should be the safest part of a child's day, no question. Their education and safety can't take a holiday. Just as their bellies can start to rumble if we're not feeding them through the free and reduced lunches, the same thing can happen involving what we call slippage over the summer to their education. You talk about the achievement gap and what that means. It all relates to what are we doing 0 to 5 to make sure they're ready to walk through the doors in a smart start way, but it also means making sure that when these summers are occurring, they're not falling back, but they're moving forward like everyone's child that is in this room should be doing too. So with that, I'm going to call on our principal, Eric Ozeri. Please come on up. Eric, give him a big hand. Thank you all.
It's always hard to follow. I always look to see who am I going to follow today, and when I saw who I was going to follow, good morning. I'm the principal DC Virgo. My name is Eric Ozeri, and I just want to say thank you for having me here today, and also taking an interest in the Youth Enrichment Zone and all the good work we're doing down there. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the best students, I think, in this county, and some of the hardest working teachers in this county. We opened the school last year with 120 students. We're up to 220 students this year with 6th and 7th grade, and next year we hope to add one more grade level to be a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade school. I've also had the opportunity this year to work with important and just amazing partners. PPD, Dreams, the Blue Ribbon Commission is really our right hand in our efforts, and also the Junior League. Mr. David mentioned the backpack program. Right now, the Junior League has helped us and the BRC send about 30 backpacks home every Friday with our students over the weekend, so I know that they have food to eat. DC Virgo serves about 90% free and reduced lunch students, so 90% of our students do live below the poverty line. So it's important that I know that they're getting the nutrition at home, and they're coming to school on Monday ready to learn. Often in these meetings, I always ask, Mr. I, what can I do to help? And then I always tell them, sit down for a second. How much time do you have? Because we have a lot of need at our school, and also a lot of our schools here in New Hanover County. We know, and Ben touched on it a little bit, that our low-income students come to school already behind in kindergarten. And we see that achievement gap continue to grow from elementary school to middle school, and also on into high school. And Ms. Jones will talk a little bit more about the summer learning gap. But we know it's not a New Hanover County issue, it's a national issue, and it's a New Hanover County issue as well. Fortunately for our students, we have the opportunity here to send them to some of the greatest schools in the state. New Hanover County is one of the highest performing school districts in the state, and just give them a round of applause because our school system is working hard. But we also know that there's a lot of work to be done, especially with the schools that serve high numbers of our low socioeconomic students. We often hear about the achievement gap, and we know that during kindergarten is a crucial time. K through 2 is an important time in the school year. When they get to my school, when they get to Williston, they're already behind 2 to 3 grade levels. And it's a lot of work for our teachers, our counselors, and our staff to try to close those gaps. One of the biggest problems that we see is over the summer. A lot of my students don't have the access to quality, academically focused summer programs. They come in August ready to go, but over that summer they've lost a lot. It's called the summer learning gap, and we'll talk about that a little bit. My downtown students, I love them. We're right between, I'm fortunate enough to be between their homes and the pool. So during the summer when I'm working long hours, I always get the knock on the door. Mr. I, what are you doing? Mr. I, what are you doing? Can we come in? Can we play in the gym? We have students that are really willing and want to be in the library. They want to be in the gym. Unfortunately, they just don't have access to a lot of quality academic programs over that summer. The research shows that over the summer, most students lose in math. They usually fall about 2 months behind in math. I wasn't a math person. I don't know if you all are, but you're not at home doing math problems. But interestingly enough, you see that your higher income students, they actually gain a little bit in reading over the summer. But lower income students actually lose 2 to 4 months over the summer. So they're already coming to school behind, and during the summer they actually lose a little bit, so that achievement gap keeps widening. So that's part of our focus today. Mr. David talked a little bit about the summer and also about the crime. downtown, we've been through a rough year this year, and I talked to Dr. Oates over at Williston, and every time we open the news, look at the news, when we hear about the shootings and the crime, the first thing, my heart drops immediately, and I just look to see where did that happen, because I know my families are directly affected by the crime and the violence that's happening. If I can get my students and SNIPE students and some of our students in the Youth Enrichment Zone into quality summer programs, I know that I can keep them in a safe, academically rich, and nurturing environment. Hopefully we'll have the opportunity to see some of the hard work we've been doing in our elective programs and our enrichment programs at DC Virgo. Not only do our students have a normal, typical school day, but on Friday afternoons we've partnered with 26 different organizations and volunteers to come in and teach enrichments. We have taekwondo, pottery, yoga, and it's always great to see my kids just building that social capital and being exposed to things that they might normally not get exposed to. It's great to see all my little kids in yoga. They love it. They didn't know what it was. They thought they were going to yogurt class. They get there, and they love it. And we're able to build some of that into our curriculum. And we have some great things going on downtown, so come see us.
But I do want to end with the biggest concern that my parents face is the same thing that my kids face. I asked them, what can we do? What can the BRC do? What can DC Virgo do to help you over the summer? And really what they asked for is they need opportunities, and they know their kids need opportunities to be engaged in educational programs. So when we survey the parents, that's the #1 concern that they have over the summer. Are my kids going to be safe? Where are they going to go? And can they get the academic guidance and help that they need over the summer to help close that gap? So I'm excited to see our band should be coming here, hopefully pretty soon to play for you all. And I'm going to introduce Jana Jones-Halls, who's the Executive Director of the Blue Ribbon Commission. Thank you very much.
We're going to start with a short film or a short video on summer learning loss.
Let's look at two children, one from a middle-income family, the other from one of the millions of low-income American families. As the two kids head off to kindergarten, look what happens. The middle-income child starts out with a 6-month lead. The low-income child is already falling behind because of a lack of access to early reading and preschool education. During their year in kindergarten, in the same school and classroom, the two children will learn at about the same rate, so we'll move them both forward 9 months. But look what happens in that first summer between kindergarten and first grade. Our middle-income child moves ahead about a month in reading because learning of one kind or another continues over the summer. The low-income child falls back about 2 months. So when school begins again, when they go back for first grade, the gap between them has already widened. During first grade, again, they move ahead at about the same rate, another 9 months. That next summer, the activities and lifestyle of the middle-income family keep that child moving forward, but the low-income child has fewer opportunities to reinforce good habits like reading, and that child falls farther behind. Then we come to second grade, and again our two children learn at the same rate. But the summer after second grade sets our low-income child back again, and our middle-income child moves forward again, and the gap widens again. By just the third grade, the two children are already far apart. By the end of fifth grade, the gap between the children is 2.5 to 3 years. It will keep growing through middle school. So you see, without addressing what's happening during the summer, it is impossible to ever catch up. It's impossible to close the gap. No matter how much high-quality learning goes on from September to June, every year the gap widens.
Thank you all for giving us this opportunity to share this exciting endeavor with you. The mission statement of the Blue Ribbon Commission is building a community where youth are safe, healthy, educated, and successful now. And the community that we're referring to is the Youth Enrichment Zone. The best way that we can serve the families in the Youth Enrichment Zone is through advocacy, empowerment, and opportunity. We have a great opportunity right now this summer to respond to a need that's been communicated by our parents in the Youth Enrichment Zone. And we have a great opportunity now to serve as advocates to bring this need to the greater community, to share this, and to ask people to join with us to make a difference and to do something about this need. As you heard from Mr. David, it's a complex issue, this issue of youth violence, and this issue that we're looking at right now, and sometimes it can seem very daunting, and sometimes you can feel helpless because there seems like there's so much to do, but we do have something that we can do right now to help in a little way with one community. The YEZ Summer Initiative is going to really help serve as a bridge between the Youth Enrichment Zone community and existing services and organizations that focus on youth. It's bringing services to our children, giving access to our children in the Youth Enrichment Zone. When we know that transportation is such an issue, this is something that we can do this summer. This program this summer is going to be piloted at DC Virgo Preparatory Academy, and it's going to be piloted with rising 7th and 8th graders at DC Virgo. However, the intention of this program is to expand this to K through 5 and to high school age students living in the Youth Enrichment Zone. We're looking at targeting students that are considered at risk and are underperforming. We are also looking at doing a 5-week program where the first half of the program is an academic program, and the second half of the program is to provide our kids with enriching opportunities and cultural experiences that they might not normally have. Here's some of the details of our program. What we're going to do to address the academic concern and address the summer learning loss is bring in an existing program that's been in operation for 20 years. It's the Bell Academic Program, or Building Educated Learners for Life. With the Bell program, we are able to bring this model in and hire teachers from New Hanover County Schools and hire teacher assistants from the Youth Enrichment Zone. We are also able to bring a curriculum that focuses on the Common Core standards, and it targets students that are performing below grade level, and it provides a exciting hands-on academic experience for our students during the summertime. The other part that we're bringing into this YEZ Summer Initiative is we're partnering with existing nonprofit agencies. We're partnering with agencies or organizations such as Kids Making It, Dreams of Wilmington. We're bringing in Wilmington Health Access for Teens. We're also bringing in some other agencies that are going to do more of the physical activities for enrichment, such as soccer, golf, yoga, as Mr. Irizarry mentioned, and some other. We also want to look at bringing in some activities that focus on nutrition. We've got the Cooperative Extension is coming to teach a cooking class, a nutrition class for our kids, where we're going to be able to use vegetables that are grown in our community garden. This is going to give you a little bit more information about the Bell program. Bell is a nonprofit, and it exists in 11 cities, but more recently in Charlotte and Winston-Salem. The core essentials of the Bell program closely match what we're trying to do with this YEZ Summer Initiative. One of the big things that Bell emphasizes is parental involvement, where parents are required to participate in meetings during the 5-week summer program. And the BRC is actually going to offer parent classes and workshops during this program, in addition to the program for the students. Here's an idea of where some of the areas that Bell has already served and is currently serving, and where we hope to bring them this summer. As Eric mentioned before, students can lose up to 2 months during the summer because of summer learning loss. But with the Bell program, they have an opportunity to gain as much as 4 months in math and almost 2.5 months in reading. some of the long-term goals that the Bell program has that, again, match our goals. One of the things that we want to do is take this program and expand it to all the youth in the Youth Enrichment Zone that have a need to have opportunities during the summer. We also want to expand this to the high school age students to give them more opportunities for college experiences, taking our kids on college tours, and really planting those seeds for the future. So these give you a little bit more of the idea of some of the outreach opportunities that we are going to bring to the Youth Enrichment Zone. Again, bringing kids, making it woodworking program to the Youth Enrichment Zone so the kids can participate in woodworking projects for the 5 weeks. Dreams of Wilmington will bring instructors to the Youth Enrichment Zone where the kids will get to participate in a variety of classes such as African drumming, dance, theater, visual arts, ceramics. Wilmington Health Access for Teens is going to be partnering with us to provide a part-time social worker to work with our kids to address some of the behavioral issues and emotional issues that we know that our kids are experiencing. As I mentioned, the EFNAP, or Expanded Food and Nutrition Educational Program, will be joining with us to do a hands-on cooking class with our kids. So they'll be able to do cooking competitions and use that produce that they are actually growing in our garden behind DC Virgo. Here's an idea of what the schedule will look like for the Bell program and the YEZ Summer Initiative. Every Thursday, our students are going to have the opportunity to go on field trips to many different areas in New Hanover County, exposing them to things that they may not normally have seen, taking them to Fort Fisher, to the beach, taking them on the ferry over to Southport. One thing that I think that we also want to make sure that we emphasize is that the idea of this program is also to help expand the capacity of existing youth summer programs. With the funding for the YEZ Summer Initiative, we also want to help get sponsorships for our students to places such as Community Boys and Girls Club, Brigade, and other week-long summer camps, because we know piloting this program with 60 kids does not take care of all of the need. But we know we have to start somewhere. And we know that we have a great opportunity right now to start something that could last for a long time. And one thing I think I want to leave you all with is, I think we all know that timeless prompt of when you walk into the classroom in fall at the beginning of the school year, you see on the board the question of, what did you do this summer? Or explain what you did this summer. And we think about all of these experiences that some of us may have had, or some of your children have, that they have family vacations to write about, going to visit museums, different camps that they've gone to. Well, I think this is an opportunity right now for us to help our kids in the Youth Enrichment Zone write their summer story. I'm going to leave you all with a little glimpse of what we can bring to the Youth Enrichment Zone through the Bell Summer Program.
Be extraordinary.
Be extraordinary. extraordinary.
Be extraordinary.
Now, if you all will turn around, we have some special guests for you today.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are the D.C. Virgo Preparatory Academy 7th grade band. So the students that you see and are getting ready to listen to have only been playing their instrument now for a year and a half. And most impressively, the instruments that each of our children are holding were a donation. They were a donation by Bob Moulton and National Pond, a businessman that decided to make a difference for our kids. Not one of our kids would have had a chance to really be a part of our program if he didn't step up and provide the instruments. And as you all know, if you've ever been in a program, instruments are not cheap, but the investment is a lifetime. So we're a little rough around the edges. We're going to probably do some like Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars, some traditional middle school stuff for you. That's probably what you're expecting. So get ready, DC Virgo Preparatory Academy. Exactly.
You folks have heard a lot here this morning, and from my perspective, I'm proud of these young people because this school was closed, and nobody had hope for that school, and this school has now been reopened with the help of the BRC, with the help of the school board, with the help of a lot of community leaders that came together really back in 2007 when we did have a spike in youth violence. That's where the BRC was really created, working with the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, all community leaders, the DA's office, the county commissioners, the city council, all of us coming together to talk about an issue that was very concerning to all of us at that point in time. How quickly we forget. And here we are in 2013 and 14 talking about the same issue. And one of the things that I have learned as the mayor of the city, looking at this issue of youth violence, which is a very complex issue, as Jana was talking about, is that I believe the key, the prevention piece, is education. We're spending $24 million just in the city on the repression piece, and the police chief and his staff are going to do their jobs. The DA and his group are going to do their jobs. The jails are going to do their jobs. But if we will really stop this slide, if we really want to stop it, education is the key. And each one of these kids are precious to us. Each one of these kids I want to see go off to school and to be productive citizens in our society, not be members of gangs. And I'm very proud of what they've been able to do at that school. But it's up to us now as a community, because this is not just a city issue, it's not just a county issue, it's a community issue. Because the driveway that leads from my house leads to your house, and it leads to somebody else's house. And if these kids end up in jail, it costs us as citizens, whether it affects us directly or not, $28,000 to $32,000 to keep them incarcerated. So we can do one of two things. We can either turn our backs and say, forget about it, just put them in jail, or we can really do something about the prevention piece and start spending more money together in helping keep these kids in school. So I'm going to ask you, each of you here today, to make a pledge for this youth enrichment, this summer initiative program. It's very important to us. It's very important to DC Virgo. It's very important to this community. And I just want to thank everybody for being part of these forums, discussing these things. It's been a great turnout. We've had a lot of great opinions and discussions about what we need to do. But this is something that we really have got to do, folks, as a community. So there's a form on your table. Please fill it out. And when you leave, if you'll just drop it off, it would greatly help all of us. So thank you for your support, and thank you for coming out today. And Hal?
I have something for you.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Mayor, you've been so persuasive this morning that even George Roundtree, who's 2,000 miles away from here this morning, has decided to direct $10,000 of his personal contribution to Cape Fear Future to the Youth Summer Enrichment Zone. And we have the ceremonial check. In addition to this, John Monteith of Monteith Construction, who wanted to be here this morning but got called out of town on business, has also decided to direct $5,000 of Monteith Construction's pledge to this same program. So thank you very much. Hopefully this will give us some momentum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Al. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for being here this morning. This is very important to all of us. Thank you.
that last song was Appalachian Folk Dance. And what we try to do is a lot of cross-curricular communication on our campus. And so you see the pieces that we chose, Tambora, talks about the history of the geography of our planet. The Colossus is just that mighty force, like the mayor said. We were a school that got shut down. Unfortunately for the community, none of us were there. So we're really the school that got reopened. We don't consider ourselves being shut down. We consider ourselves being reopened. That last piece, Appalachian Folk Dance, takes us into the heritage of some colonial times and the Appalachians. This last piece is called Down the Africana. Now, you've been sitting for a long time, and you need to kind of get up and work it out. The checkbooks and the pens and things of that nature. This is our final number. D.C. Virgo Preparatory Academy 7th grade band, Down the Africana.
Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Not only do you sound good, you look terrific.